The time now is 8:11. You're on Power Breakfast this morning with Tessa Dooms. We asked you the question, who or what will it take to turn the city of Johannesburg around so that we're not dealing just with syndicates and mafias, and those being the people and the hands and the powers that be in a city like this. And of course, one of the people who answered that call with her own name once upon a time, Dr. Palatse, joins us this morning. Dr. Palatse, thank you so much for making time for us. Welcome to Power Breakfast.
Good morning, Tessa, and I've not spoken to you since you started your radio gig, so congratulations, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much, and great to have you also with us this morning. Of course, we haven't spoken much since your exit from the political scene and political life. We hope that you're doing well.
Yes, I am. I'm really enjoying the break while it lasts. I don't know how long it will last. I do intend going back to politics at the right time. But yes, I'm doing various other things at the moment.
Breaking news. Dr. Palatse intends to re-enter politics. That comes straight from Power Breakfast this morning. But we were also just saying this morning that we are trying to profile women, in the Women's Month time. It's important for us to bring forward the voices of women who've been courageous like yourself to enter into the realm of politics, particularly in the city like the one in Joburg. And so perhaps let's start at that point. Taking up leadership in a city like Johannesburg, what are the things that you walk into the office and then have to confront, or you are confronted with, that you may not have expected in terms of the complexity?
Well, thanks, Tessa, firstly, for what you're doing for women. I think it's very important that we do create platforms and encourage other women to enter the fore. We need all hands on deck with what's happening with our government, particularly our municipalities. And with the elections coming up next year, I really certainly hope that more women will be putting their hands up and making themselves available. But it is a mammoth task. And for me, I think the greatest complexity that I didn't anticipate was the lack of support. Mm-hmm. The abuse and the use of the bureaucracy by political forces to sabotage. I experienced a lot of that, through the use of the unions, as an example. Some who used to be used a lot by the ANC during our tenure to sabotage our work. I didn't expect also just, within your own coalition that there would be so much opposition. I thought opposition is opposition and government is government, and that there would be cohesion within a coalition, but that was not my experience at all. What I found instead was that my partners were always colluding and finding ways to get better deals from the opposition, and that's how we were eventually ousted. So that was quite, for me, also quite really sad, because I think we had a good shot had we had a solid coalition.
So the politics getting in the way of the work that needs to get done. But let's also talk about what the work means and what that work looks like. The finances of the city, 70 billion rand sits in that budget, if not more. I think there was a point at which the budget reached about 80 billion. The dynamics of managing such a large metropole in this context, a fiscally constrained context, and a context where we've been talking this morning about, some of the nefarious characters, syndicates, patronage networks. How do we then start? What does it take to start unraveling that and getting to the business of running the city?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need political will. So you need the right people at the helm who have the hearts of the people and who care about the well-being of residents of Johannesburg. I think that's first and foremost. When you have that, and you make sure that in the bureaucracy you've got capable leaders at a departmental level, at an entity level, who know what they're doing, have the requisite skills and qualifications, and that there are internal controls and mechanisms in place to hold people to account, to monitor the work of the administration. If you have all of that in place, you should be able to run a city like Johannesburg. Yes, it's a big city. It's a very complex city. It's got a very complex structure in itself. But if you've got the right people at the lowest level, you should be able to pull it together. Of course, your city manager is very important in pulling up the entire administration, and the mayor and the city manager. That relationship as well is very important. And we know that the city of Johannesburg has that instability in the highest office. I believe that there's a city manager now that's been deployed to assist in the city, but it's been very rocky as far as I understand in this particular term, and so that also contributes to the instability and the poor governance.
And yeah, that city manager question is an open question at the moment. We're still trying to get a city manager. But what happens when that kind of role is politicized? Because I make the argument that we do not have a professionalization problem in as much as we have a politicization problem of the state. So what are the dangers of that being a political deployee in that role?
Well, you're absolutely right, Tessa. Unfortunately, when our motives are not right for entering political office, we will employ people who will do our bidding, and often that bidding is losing. Unfortunately, and that's what we see play itself out over and over again. We should have bureaucrats who are apolitical, who serve at the behest of the residents first and foremost. They serve under the leadership of the political leadership, but they should serve the residents of Johannesburg. And they've got a fiduciary duty as well. They've got a duty to oversee the finances, ensure that there's service delivery and that services enter every household in the city. So it cannot be a political appointment. Ideally, it should really be a technocrat who knows what they're doing, has capability, a track record, and can deliver what needs to be delivered.
Yeah, because we've seen the kind of also protectionism that comes with that. If you politically deploy somebody, then you have to protect them. There's been many allegations around somebody like Helen Bottas, for example, where, the allegations are not just about wrongdoing on her part, but also protection from political allies and her political bosses. Tabo from Mamelodi, you want to jump in on this one, chatting to Dr. Mpopalatse?
Yes, morning.
Morning.
You know what? We live in a country where we cannot celebrate people that are doing a good job because of every time a whistleblower comes out, they either be killed or they are left in the cold. So that means that in our department, we are being run by corrupt people. So the political will that we are speaking about is far-fetched because of if you are going to sit there and watch people who are living beyond their means. So if you are a good person, you have to follow through because of there's no accountability in this country. So that means that whoever is in the department, whoever they're holding the positions of power, they're really, looting the state left, right, and center. So the political will that we are speaking about does not exist. It only exists in our dreams.
Sure, Tabo Ramamalodi there. The political will does not exist. But also the question about, these syndicates, and is Joburg at the point, Dr. Palatse, in your view, where we are over-politicized and also in danger of being a mafia state?
I certainly believe so. I mean, if you look at some of the internal systems that were built into the city to protect its resources, a lot of them have been done away with. We used to have a group forensic investigation services unit, as an example. I mean, what are the trending topics now? The letter from the Minister of Finance threatening to withhold funds from the city because of just a rise in irregular expenditure, in fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and so on. And that is because it has been left to continue, it has been left to fester. These cases are not being investigated, monies are not being recouped, people are not being held to account. Now, when we were in office, we had this unit that was investigating UIFW as an example, and people knew they could not just engage in irregular expenditure. There will be consequences. If you've got a city where you're allowed to loot, you're allowed to do things as you please, to contravene various legislation, you will do it. And unfortunately, that's what happened in the last few years, is that we're now at 22.2 billion rand in irregular expenditure, 705 million rand in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. There is absolutely no excuse in a city that used to have systems in place to check these issues, to investigate, to hold people to account.
And so as the deadline looms now, the Treasury has given the city 2 weeks to get its finances in order. What does that actually mean? What does that threat actually mean, or that directive mean? What do they need to get in order, and what happens if they don't?
Tessa, I'm really, I've not seen the letter. I would have loved to have read it myself, because I find it difficult to believe that the minister would say it would take 2 weeks to get in order what seems years to destroy.
Yeah.
So for me, it's I'm seeing it in the media. I've tried to ask if anybody has seen the letter. It doesn't look like councillors have seen the letter. But we're operating on assumption now, and I think the minister is quite knowledgeable, and I don't think that he'll operate under the illusion that the city's finances can be resolved in just 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, yeah.
I don't think he can. What he can ask in 2 weeks is for the city to give account as to what systems are in place, what has been done, what investigations are ongoing to look into these cases of UIFWs, who has been held to account, how much money has been recouped, what sort of structures have been set up to ensure that we tighten the screws. So those are the kind of things the minister can ask.
Yeah.
But certainly not for the finances to be turned around in 2 weeks. That is extremely impossible.
And I mean, you could ask those questions, but right now, the city of Joburg does not even have an MMC of finance since Mark Arnold's, became the speaker in the House again after that big fallout of the coalition. We actually don't have an MMC for finance. So ultimately, who's going to account for this mess, and how do we get to the bottom of it? Because, of course, the city's finances, we are now in a new financial year and dispensation. There have been these chronic issues of underspending, these chronic issues of irregularities. Who accounts right now?
It's unacceptable that there's no NMC for finance. Completely unacceptable. It's unacceptable that the mayor is running the office of the NMC. The mayor has too much on their plate. They cannot handle that office. Their finance office requires much focus. And so it is completely unacceptable. The people who are to account now is, of course, the city manager. It is the mayor, since he's running the office of the NMC, but I understand he's not speaking to anyone. I mean, I'm told this letter from the minister arrived before the last council meeting, and it was not even brought to council.
Sure.
None of the councillors have seen the letter. That is completely unacceptable. So these evasive tendencies need to stop, and the minister needs to hold the city to account.
And so, are there any possibilities here, Dr. Palatse, of the city of the kind that Johannesburg is, to see a process like administration, for example, to see a process where this is escalated? I was saying earlier that 18 months feels like a terribly long time if we are in as deep a crisis as this war between, or this Cold War, I guess, between Treasury and the mayor suggests.
Well, as you know, the DA and the city has been pushing for the city to be placed under administration. So for the longest time, we believe that that's probably the best thing that can happen now. Because of the election outcome, unfortunately, that placed us in a very difficult position. And you remember that at some point, our coalition had up to 10 political parties. It was untenable. So we started off wrong. Nobody had a clear mandate. There was horse trading that went on throughout our tenure. We've seen mayor after mayor, even after my ousting. So it does seem at this point, given the criminality and the corruption that has been so rampant, it does seem at this point that the powers that be do need to consider placing the city under administration.
Final question, Dr. Palatse. What and who will it take to change the city of Joburg? I know that's the most loaded question you've ever been asked, but if you had to think about kind of the top thing that you think is most urgent at this point, what is it?
Well, first of all, we've got elections coming up next year, Tessa. And I think, if our residents did not know what it means to vote, I hope that they now know this has been a terrible term since 2021 up until now. We've not had stability in the city. It has affected us at a household level, at a personal level. I do hope that, and I don't know if you're still involved in Rivonia Circle, but I hope that organizations such as Rivonia Circle could really use these case studies, because now we've got data that we can actually take to residents and say, this has happened because either you didn't vote, you didn't vote correctly, are you well informed? Do you know who's contesting? Do you know what they're offering? Do they have a track record? Is there somewhere where they've governed and it worked? So we need to use this experience, as terrible as it is, we have to use it in our favor to educate our residents and hopefully pull as many to the polls as possible come next election. And hopefully we can have a clear mandate and a much better government.
Well, Dr. Palatse, that is an interesting answer coming from a politician and somebody who's held that seat, because essentially you're saying that the thing that will save the city of Joburg is actually its residents and how we organize ourselves between now and whenever that election, the 2026 election, as we're calling it colloquially now, is. But thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr. Mpho Palatse, former mayor of the city of Johannesburg.